Yo, what up? It's CodeBro, and today we're looking at equality, comparisons, and sameness, or the double equals and triple equals for JavaScript. I'm referring to the MDN Mozilla Developer Network, one of my favorite resources for finding out facts and theories about JavaScript. And we're going to use their references, so we know everything is correct here. Now, this is one of these things which, personally as a developer, I don't find so useful. It's good to know how they work for sure, but basically I always use strict equality comparison. I never use, or very rarely do I use abstract equality comparison, or loose equality. Actually, loose equality I've heard of more. That's only really used in some edge cases where I need to compare null loosely. Basically, I have this thing where I have a value and I say does not loosely equal null to mean that it's valid in some way. But it's as I say, a weird exception, and 99.99% I use the strict equality comparison. So how do they work? This is important because it's often asked in job interviews what the difference is between double equals and triple equals. It's one of these standard tests to see if you are a beginner or something else. So the strict equality is really easy. Just to recap with JavaScript, you've got 5 types: numbers, objects, strings, and null and undefined. So strict equality checks by type. So if you've got a number compared to null, or a string compared to undefined, or an object compared to a string, it will always equal false. As you can see here in this block, you've got number equals object, false, etc, etc. The only things that will return true for strict equality is if you are comparing a number with a number and that number is exactly the same number as the previous one. So to summarize, strict equality compares type and value of your two values. So it compares value. It basically means if it's a 0 and you're comparing it with a 0, it will be true. If it's a 0 and you're comparing it with a 1, it won't be true. Okay, it's good to know also, just remember this is called strict equality. The double equals is called loose equality. It's good to have a name for it rather than just calling it triple equals and double equals. So let's look at loose equality. Slightly more complicated, but also rather simple. Basically, when you are comparing using the double equals, it coerces the type of one of your values so that you get a common type. So if you were to do, let's look at their examples. Number and string, pretty easy to understand. Basically, it'll change either the number or the string to be the other one, so that they're both a number or they're both a string. And then the comparison, final equality comparison, is performed exactly as triple equals performs it. So basically, in this situation, you've got a number 0 and a string that reads 0, and then let's say it changes the string into a number. So you're comparing a 0 to a 0, and then it will basically do exactly this comparison here. So it'll compare 0 to 0, which of course returns true. Now, this is fairly unsafe if you're doing it for most situations, because if, for example, you had a number 0 and a string 0, and you really cared that you were comparing numbers and not just strings, then you want it to return false. But with the double equals, it returns true. Okay, but you see how it's it's not that useful, because if you're writing a program, you kind of care about what type things are. But anyway, this is my personal experience. Maybe someone else has had a different experience. If you have, please write below. Now, this is a strange one. It compares null and undefined to make true. It's like this is nully or undefinedy to mean like they kind of, for some reason, I don't know. That shouldn't happen really. I mean, null is not undefined, so that to me doesn't make any sense. And yeah, but the double equals doesn't say like a number equals undefined. That would equal false, or that would return false. And as you see here, if you're comparing an object to null or undefined, both false except in rare cases. The rare case is very kind of vague in my opinion. A is an object that emulates undefined. So obviously null emulates undefined, but only some objects do, very rare objects do. Okay, well, I just wanted to go over the basics. So just to summarize, strict compares type and value. Loose coerces one of the values to be the same type as the other value and then uses strict equality. So loose more or less only compares by value, not by type. But it's good to know exactly how it does that. It does it by using type coercion. And this word coercion, if you're not a native speaker, it basically means if you coerce someone to do something, it means you're forcing them to do something that they don't want to do. So I don't know, you could think of that as a way of remembering what type coercion is. It means changing a type to something that it's not. I guess that could help. If you want to test these out, you can head on over to JS Fiddle and you can do a console log and you can just see if this works. So let's try it. 0 equals 0 in a string. Let's check our console and run. And that's true because we're using loose comparison. Let's try triple equals. That should return false, and yes it does. Now some stranger situations, maybe something like null. So that should definitely return false because null does not equal a string because it's type. Okay, and what about that one that they had there, undefined? Yeah, that's false as well. Because it's strict. Now let's try it with loose. Okay, that's true. So yeah, the example they had there is correct. Yeah, that's what we did with strict, and that's what we did with loose. Okay, well that's all I wanted to touch on today. In future videos, I'd like to show you how to compare objects because there's no built-in function for that in JavaScript. So we'll expand on this later. For now, if you've got any questions, write below. But have a great day and see you next time. Thanks.